All right, nice to meet you. How are things?
Thanks very much for picking up the call and agreeing to chat with me.
No worries, no worries, no worries. But thanks for reaching out to me, anyways, because I noticed in the email you asked for me specifically.
Yeah. Well, like I said, so I can just give you a bit of a background. So I'm working with Euronews. I'm based in France, but I'm working on a piece kind of about the current political landscape in Ireland, and specifically looking at kind of youth. So whether that's kind of teenagers, young people like yourself. And yeah, so I thought you would be a good person to speak to. So yeah, thank you very much.
No worries, no worries.
Great. So just to ask, like, are you good for time or?
I should be good enough. How long do you think the interview is going to last, if I can ask?
Like, let's say 20, 25 minutes, depending on, how it goes. But let's say 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's grand, all right. As long as it's not over like 40 minutes, because my son will be waking up now, I'd say, within the next 40 minutes.
Okay, no worries. Well, if you need to, do anything, just let me know.
100%.
Great. So I thought we could just start a bit by just a basic introduction. So if you could tell me, introduce yourself, your age, where you're originally from. I don't know if you've grown up and stayed in the same area your whole life, and then how you started with the National Party.
Yeah, grand. Well, my name's Mac Oireachtaigh. I'm the National Party candidate. I was for the South Dublin County Council. Basically, I got involved with the MP back in 2019, and to be honest with you, I also was then promoted to the youth leader of the National Party, so I'm in charge of the youth wing of Náisiúnta as of around May 2022, give or take. And basically, my job is to kind of inspire the youth into nationalism, because I find that in particular for a lot of young people in Ireland, a lot of them are hopeless. There's a sense of, how would you say, the word slipped from my mind, typical as they were doing an interview, but basically there's a lot of young people and they just feel kind of hopeless with the current state of things. You see this with mass emigration, so people leaving Ireland to go to, let's say, Australia. Like, I know 2 people that have already gone to Australia because they think that, like, they're in their late 20s, but they just can't afford anything in Ireland currently. And a lot of the issues that we're facing, that young people are facing in particular, is a large chunk of this is to do with mass immigration. And the fact that any Tom, Dick and Harry that speaks up and speaks out against these issues is given a number of labels. All right, we all know what they are. And it has sort of, in a sense, radicalized a lot of young people, because they see a lot of these politicians that have it easy, that have it handy. And you see, as a normal person like me or like you or like anyone else in the party, for example, they'd see how things are going on the street level, and things are getting really bad economically. I mean, like, you look at half the number of gaps that are going in social welfare, that are going to social housing, that are going to people, are actually going to foreigners, because they're on the list as well. And they're seeing that all these people that are just blow-ins to the country, in reality, they're blow-ins, are getting free accommodation. And then, like, for me, for example, like, I have a family, I have a 1-year-old son, and I still live at home with my parents, even though my parents bought their first house in Tala for 68 grand at the time, and they were able to buy it with one income, and that's a huge issue that a lot of young people in Ireland, and you can see it on the doors. I mean, there's a video, I don't know if you saw it, but I have a video where I was talking, and see, I was an activist in the 2020 general elections. What was telling
with the National Party?
Yeah, with the MP. I was an activist for a local candidate in Dublin South West, and essentially what I noticed is that people were kind of like, they were kind of like, yeah, I understand, but they weren't supportive of the. They were just kind of like saying, no, I get you, and best of luck with how you get on. And that did sort of translate to votes, because then in that election we got 0.75% in Dublin South West. All right, we got around, I think it was 800 first preference votes. I could be wrong in that, but I believe it was 800. And now 2024 local elections, I knock around the doors as the local candidate, and things have changed completely. In one LEA, in Tallaght South LEA, I got 403 first preference votes, half of a general election result from the previous general elections in 2020. In Fairhouse Barnabrina, I got that Tallaght South result was 5.3% of first preference votes, and then in Fairhouse Barnabrina, I got 4.6%, which was about 503 votes. Or 500, it was 500 votes. So that kind of shows, and that's in 2 LEAs, that shows how things have changed. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people on the right wing that think, oh, we're gonna have a break. Like a lot of people you would have seen in other organizations, not the MP, but in a lot of organizations, they would have seen, oh, we're gonna have a breakthrough, we're gonna get 100 candidates elected. But we knew that at best there was gonna be 4 or 5 councillors would get elected. Which is what happened. 4 or 5 so-called nationalist councillors got elected, one of them being National Party's deputy leader, Patrick Quinlan, and we were very close to getting Stephen Redmond elected in Ballymunfinglas. And this kind of feeds in to where young people are at, because when I'm on the doors, like, it's the young lads in particular are the ones that are really supportive of our message, which I think is very telling with National Party membership in general, because our membership is a very young membership. It's a very young demographic.
Okay, do you have numbers of that? Like how many? Like, yeah.
No, I'm not going to give out any numbers of our membership, but
Okay.
But a lot of our membership is a much younger demographic, like late teens, early 20s. That's kind of where you're looking at a lot of lads. A lot of lads in my area that helped me out canvassing were all under the age of 28. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think that there is that factor to it where it's not, where you have this new generation coming up in the so-called multicultural, diverse Ireland, and they're just not happy with it. And I guess I'm the focal point of that, being the leader of the National Party Youth Wing, being the candidate for Dublin South West general election area and the local LEAs in South Dublin County Council. And I think that it is resonating. I know, like, I wasn't successful in getting a seat, but my goal was to reach 5%, and I reached 5% in Tallaght South. I got 5.3%, and I was very pleased with that result. Like, that's well over 7 times better than how we did in the last general election, and I saw that as an increase and a positive. And it's like that all across the country. Like, our candidates have been doing fairly well, and most of our candidates are younger lads as well, and that's just the way things are going. That's just the way things are going, because young people know, they just know that the current course where we're going is just not sustainable. It is absolutely not sustainable. And although, of course, there's other issues that are plaguing society, that is absolutely spot on. But one of the big issues, the pillar issue that's really plaguing society at the minute is mass immigration. And we're not afraid to say it. You know, we're not afraid to say it. And the solution to that is remigration. And when I say remigration, I don't just mean, because a lot of people would be out there saying, oh yeah, but the Irish went everywhere. You know, like, I always get that one, which is gas. But remigration also means returning our Irish diaspora. I don't know why our government is looking for every Tom, Dick and Harry across the world when we have a huge diaspora that we can pull from. And these people are literally Irish, right? They're so much easier to integrate into Irish society because they already kind of follow the tradition and customs. Like in America, you have a huge tradciol, just Irish heritage areas in America, Canada, Australia, and all these places. Those people should have been the people that we should be pulling in for when the market is low on a certain sector for jobs. They're the people that we should be pulling in from, not people who are completely alien to Ireland. I mean, it's not sustainable. And that's the way we see it.
So we might get into some of that, like, in a couple of minutes, and kind of go back to what you're saying right now. But before we do that, I'd just love to know a little bit about, because my piece is focusing on youth, kind of how, like, why did you join the National Party? Why was that a thing for you personally? And why the youth division? Like, what, you must have been, like 19 or so when you started with them? And then, I'd like to know a little bit about kind of what activities and how the youth division works.
All right, grand. Well, okay, and fair enough. That's basically in 2019, right, this is, as you know, the 2018 abortion referendum happened, right, and now the National Party, and I'm very pro-life, right, and see,
are you religious? Is that like a personal are you Catholic, or is that
I'm Catholic, but like there's a lot of lads in the party that aren't Catholic that are pro-life. Do you know what I mean?
okay.
Like it's not. I don't think it has
not
to.
a party?
No, I don't think it has to equate to religion. And the NP isn't a Catholic party in that religious sense.
Okay.
Like we're just kind of non-denominational, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, so in 2018 is kind of when I started looking into politics, because up until then, I would have been just like a normal person in all senses to things. Like I wouldn't have been involved in politics whatsoever. But when the 2018 abortion referendum came in, I would have been 16, and what would have happened was I thought that nobody wants to kill babies. And then it passed by a large margin. It was well over 60%, and people voted in favour. And I was raging because I said to myself, "Oh wow!" And I just sat at home while that referendum went about. I didn't do anything, even though I was pro-life. So that kind of motivated me to look into politics. And I saw a few parties. There was a few parties at the time that were pro-life. And probably the most hardline pro-life party that was out there was the National Party. And that's what got me involved. And I joined then in 2019 after doing research and looking into the organisations. Because I was still, I'm very Republican, I'm very nationalist. So the fact that they were pro-life and they had all these values as well was just like a win-win in my view. So I signed up in 2019, and then from there onwards, it's been great. I've made loads of friends. We love a lot of the activities that we do in the youth wing would be going on hikes, helping the mother party with leafleting, canvassing, all of these things, and organising events and whatnot. And that would be basically just building a community of like-minded individuals, of young lads, and making sure that they don't fall into despair with the way society has gone. Because there is, amongst young men in particular, I think Ireland, now I could be wrong on this, but I believe Ireland has one of the higher suicide rates amongst young men, and young women as well, like the two of them. So I do think that building a community of like-minded individuals helps people. It just helps, regardless of what it is. It could be chess or whatever, but for political-minded people, there is no other organisation like Náisiúnta, like the National Party in Ireland. I know that there's all these other parties, but the fact of how young, there is a generational divide between all these organisations, and I think the National Party is by far the youngest demographic and the most energetic out of all of them.
Mm-hmm. And so with the youth division, is that open just to boys, and kind of what age?
No, it's open to anyone. Anyone can sign up. You can go on nationalparty.ie/join and you could sign up.
Yeah, but if the youth division that, because that's separate. So if you're building kind of community for younger people, is that just is that for a specific age kind of to get involved?
Well, ideally, you'd be at past the junior cert, you know what I mean? You'd be 16, 17 plus,
okay.
And then it would be maximum to just under 30, and that would be kind of the age demographic that you'd be looking at within the youth within Náisiúnta.
And I've seen that you would organise kind of talks or meetups with kind of other European.
Yeah, 100%. We have a wide range of contacts across the continent. Some in France actually, where you're stationed at the minute, and the Netherlands, Flanders, all these parts of a load of parts, even to Finland, and Estonia. But basically, that's what it's about. I mean, we're connecting with a bunch of other youth organisations, nationalist youth groups across the continent that believe the same things that we believe, because there is that sense, although the European Union isn't great, I do feel that there needs to be a sort of unity amongst Europeans in the sense that we can help each other, because we all know that like in the 20th century and previously there's been tons of wars fought between European countries, and building those kind of bridges with other groups and other organizations, I think, can help prevent that sort of like obviously now like it's a youth group where you're talking a few hundred, few thousand people, right? But I mean, it just kind of goes in the future when these organizations do get larger, when the NP does get in government, like become the government, that we have these links so that we understand each other's cultures, and because there's enough diversity in Europe as it stands. And yeah, I was invited over to Flanders there recently to talk about Irish nationalist history. It was the Irish Night. It was last March. It was really fun. Like, it was great crack. Like the NSV group that's over there is fantastic. They're a national student fraternity, and they are good crack. They're great people, and they're very similar to the Yoga Náisiúnta branch of the National Party. They're very similar to us. So
okay, same kind of values or policies.
Well, value their policies. That's what you mean by that. I think that we can get along on a lot of things. I'm sure that there's a few things that we disagree on, similar with them with us. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think that we agree on a lot of things. You know.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. I was out of curiosity, like, do you feel that like your background, kind of when you were 16 and getting involved in politics, was this kind of, were you surrounded in your family by people who were also actively engaged, or
no,
were you a black sheep?
A black sheep. Thanks, but no. Basically, I think that like my parents have no interest in politics whatsoever. Zero, absolutely zero. They it depends really, because it's a mixed bag. I mean, some people, their parents might be more like left wing, but they're still in Yoga Náisiúnta. Some parents have no interest at all in politics, and then some others might be more right wing. It depends really. Like, there's all sorts. I don't think that with the way the internet has gone, I don't really think that what the parent believes has a huge effect on the child or the person growing up. I think that was more important for our parents' generation, like those in their 40s and 50s, because there wasn't the access to media that we have. But because we have the knowledge of the world at our fingertips, you know, and I think that that's how people who are interested in politics can make up their mind a lot easier than before. Mm-hmm. When before it would have been absolute, like you can see it though with, like, I'm sure your nana still votes for Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's, like, I know a load of my aunts, my great aunts and great uncles, they'd still be voting Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, you know, even though their worldview wouldn't be like, because of course they're older and they wouldn't agree with a lot of policies that they put forward, but they'd still vote for them because their parents and their grandparents voted for them. So I think that there is a lot of that for the older generation, but for the younger generation, I don't think that rule applies. I don't really think that rule applies anymore. I think the game has changed ever since the internet and media has come into play. Like, with social media, connecting with people, hearing people's different opinions, podcasts are a big one now, and I think podcasts have been a huge help, because a lot of podcasts, they just open up your mind to difference of opinion. Like, a lot of right-wing figures would be censored on Twitter, would have been censored on, and still are censored on Instagram, you know, Meta, Facebook, all these sort of platforms. So the fact that, although Elon Musk hasn't been fantastic in his free speech, I do think that he has let back a lot of right-wing pundits who now have a voice. They now have a voice, and people agree with that voice, when if they would have been just banned off the internet, people wouldn't have been able to hear that. So I do think that social media plays a big role in that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so many people I've spoken to as well over the past week or so would also agree with you that social media has played a role, but in a negative sense, in that people, whether, you know, a lot of young people, especially since the pandemic, have been on social media, and you end up in a cycle of basically a bubble. So do you not personally, or, do you not think that maybe it's a risk of it's opened up?
Yeah, do you know what? I actually agree with you in that regard. I do think that, like, if you like, I don't spend an awful lot of time on social media because I know that it's not good to be constantly in your own bubble, listening to your own people. That's why I like knocking on doors. Like, I've been every day on my campaign, I've been knocking on doors, talking to real people in real life and hearing what they have to say. And that's one thing that I would promote amongst all the young members within the organisation, that, although it's great to be on Twitter, to be on TikTok or whatever you're using, right? It's great and all, but don't like lull yourself into that false security of, oh, everyone agrees with me. My opinion is correct. Like, you have to challenge other people's opinions too. You have to go and knock on doors. You have to speak to genuine people who mightn't be as invested as, because when you're on social media, like, for example, I think my comment section is probably gas on Twitter. You get a lot of people, and they're like, you either have people that fully support you or are absolutely against you. Like, you have people that would be screaming every name in the book, every ist and ism to me in the book, in my comment section. Then you have people that are absolutely supportive. But in real life, when you're knocking on doors, like, you just have very well-mannered, polite people who will take your opinion into consideration. They'll take your what you're saying into consideration. And a lot of people are like that, That's the people you have to win over. You have to win over the average person who isn't as invested in politics as, say, me or maybe you, and just have a chat with them. Because the people online, the people who are the politi-brains, I'll say, they have their side chosen. They're either going to be with you or against you, and there is no middle line. But in real life, in the real world, there is huge middle line, and that middle line needs to be won over.
I'd be interested in kind of, like, obviously when you're going around knocking on doors, there's been, especially over the past few months, obviously everything that's been happening with immigration in Dublin, in Ireland. There's a lot of visibility of what's been going on. But I wonder, in terms of actually getting your information and making sure that what you're campaigning on, or what you're hearing, and what's being relayed through communities is accurate. Like, how are you getting in your information on immigration and so on?
Well, on immigration, it's just looking at the census. You look at the census from 20 years ago, Ireland was something like over 90% Irish, or in the late 80s% Irish. Now, Ireland is late 70%, like 78, 79% Irish. So obviously there's a clear number of foreigners coming into the country, and the Irish percent within the population is dropping, and it's dropping quite consistently and quite rapidly. I think that this is one of the issues that I'd campaigned against mass immigration, because although, like, you can talk about the crime rates all day, you can talk about the economic problems, the environmental problems it causes, but the reality is that we can't have a situation where we're inviting in the whole world. Like, it's just not possible. And what we do, although the government will say that we do not have open borders policies, and maybe that's true on paper, maybe that's accurate on paper, but for all intents and purposes, for the size that Ireland is, we may as well have open borders policies. We may as well be letting in everyone, because at the current rates that we're at, and with the passing of the Migration Pact yesterday, it's only going to get worse from here. And Irish people will be a minority. I'd say within the next, if current rates continue as they are now, I'd say we'd probably be a minority within the next 20 years. And that is just an unacceptable scenario, because we've no other homeland. The Irish people have no other homeland but Ireland. And these levels of mass immigration will destroy the Irish nation. And that is one thing that my organisation seeks to prevent. We seek in all matters, spiritual, physical, economical, that Ireland remains Irish, and that Ireland will continue to exist for the next, how many ever years till the world ends, I guess.
on this, I mean, the National Party has been described by, a number of organisations that try to combat racism, or even politicians as racist and also white nationalist, quote unquote. The party's principles, you oppose mass migration, and you talk a lot about the Irish people, but I wonder, what does that mean? Who are the Irish people, and does that mean only a certain type of person who looks a certain way?
Well, no, because if you were to say that, for example, then, see, this is one thing that a fallacy that white nationalists fall into is they essentially want to look out, like white nationalism is an American ideology, it's not even European, right? But they basically want all this, unity. And Irish nationalists, we want to look out for the Irish people because our long-time enemy has been the British Empire. And they might look, quote unquote, look like us. But the British Empire has been our enemy for the last 800 years and they still occupy our 6 counties. And if you go into the 6 counties, you'll find that a lot of the so-called orange men absolutely despise Ireland and they might, quote unquote, look like us. So our interest is to the Irish people. Best of luck to all the other European countries. I wish them well, but my nation comes first and foremost before any other white country. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that I don't understand it's not something that I support, the white nationalist stuff. I think it's a joke. It's a joke ideology. It's a meme ideology. It's from the States. I support Irish nationalism, Irish republicanism. That's what the National Party supports as well. Like, we don't have a say, and to be quite honest with you, they can have best of luck to them in across the pond and on the continent. But our focus is the Irish nation and the Irish people first and foremost, because we have a huge bit of mass immigration comes from Europe, right? It's not even coming from. We're not even just talking about Africa or the Middle East or East Asia. We're talking about people coming from Eastern Europe. If Eastern Europeans keep flooding the country as they are right now, the Irish nation will still cease to exist. All right, that's the reality. It could be. We see it in the 6 counties with the plantations. Britain flooded our northeasternmost counties with Anglo-Scotch. What happened? Irish people are only at 50% of the population up there because the other 50% absolutely despise the Irish Republic, our flag, even though we've given them a portion of our flag to, I guess, support them back in the when we came up with the flag, with the tricolour. And it's not good enough. I mean, nothing is good enough. And that's why we cannot have mass immigration from anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's from Africa, if it's from Eastern Europe, if it's from Europe, or if it's from East Asia. We can't have it from anywhere, because any mass immigration, regardless of the colour of skin or the colour of eyes or whatever, will still destroy the Irish nation. And that is unacceptable.
But just coming back to the idea of, protecting the idea of who the Irish people are. If, people have been here, there's a new a second generation of people who are very much Irish or would consider themselves Irish now, but don't have generations and generations of behind them of people who are Irish. Their parents perhaps came to Ireland 30 years ago. Do you include these people in? No,
they wouldn't be Irish. They wouldn't be Irish. They would be Irish citizens. I'm sure they're Irish citizens, and I accept that. But they would not be Irish. I mean, an Irish person is a Gael, and Gaels are distinct peoples, just like anyone who lives, just like the various ethnic groups that are in Africa. They're all distinct peoples, or the various ethnic groups within Europe. They're also distinct peoples. And we need to protect distinct peoples as opposed to flooding countries with various distinct peoples and just turning it into a mess. Because that's what it would turn into. Diversity would just essentially turn into a mess, and it would make a mess of things. And it's not beautiful. It's quite the opposite. It just destroys. It destroys native cultures and native peoples. And that is, again, unacceptable.
All right. And moving on slightly, so yesterday the CSO, they published statistics showing that there's been an 11% increase in arson attacks, which are believed to be linked to anti-immigrant sentiment. But, you know, the MP often blames crime as linked to immigrants or non-Irish people, but there doesn't seem to be evidence to suggest that link. But, you know, with these statistics published yesterday, there seems to be a clear link of violence and these anti-immigration protests.
Right,
So,
well...
yeah, would you be able to comment on that?
My comment would be that I actually made a comment similar to this on my TikTok. I don't know if you saw it, and on my Twitter. But essentially, those arson attacks are the politicians' fault. I mean, they're fully the politicians' fault. There has been protests in Dublin, in Ireland, in regards to mass immigration and these so-called asylum seekers for years now. And the politicians don't listen to us. They don't listen to the Irish people that are speaking out against these things. And then you have some people, essentially, who take matters into their own hands. And then that's what you get. You get arson attacks. That is, of course, it's just unacceptable the way things have gone. And it could have been stopped at the source. Those arson attacks are easily preventable if they just get rid of the DP centre, the plantation centre in the local area. That's all the politicians have to do, but they don't do it. And then people, I'm sure some angry locals, take matters into their own hands. In regards to crime from foreigners committing crime, the last stat that was published was I believe in the Irish Prison Service, which recorded the amount of in 2006, and it showed that there was a large portion of foreigners committing crimes disproportionately to Irish people, and you can see that now with the likes of Puska in Sligo, who beheaded, I believe, one man and killed two men. I mean, that's just barbarism. And to be quite honest with you, it's increasing all over Europe. It's not just Ireland. Like France and all these countries have experienced it first because they've had open mass immigration for far longer than we have. But we're starting to see it now in Ireland as well, and it's only going to get worse.
There's often, you know, on when I'm following kind of, you know, on Twitter or X, and there's often comments being made when there is an attack that might have been done by somebody who's non-Irish, but there are many attacks that are done by Irish people, whether that's by men or women, and there's not really many comments.
I can't comment for what people say, but I can comment for what I say, and I have talked about a lot of issues that have been pertaining in regards to, let's say, an Irishman committing a crime, right? The National Party believes in the death penalty for particularly heinous crimes, right? The Irish people that commit crimes, they should be jailed, of course, and if they commit a particularly heinous crime, potentially the death penalty should be on the books for it. But the fact that people are using this argument that, oh, well, Irish people commit crimes. Oh, right, so we'll just invite more that will add to that crime. Is Irish people committing crime like not enough crime for these people, for these liberal-minded people? Is Irish people not committing crimes not enough? Do we need to import more criminality into Ireland? Because that's where we're going. We don't need more. We already have enough. Criminality in Ireland as is with just Irish people. We don't need more. We don't need mass immigration. No thanks.
Just one final point on this. I mean, would you not say that is inherently racist to be kind of linking anybody who's non-Irish coming into the country with crime when, you know, most people would just consider them people? No, well,
I think that people who come into, a lot of people that come into Ireland might be genuine and nice, and they can be guests of the nation, but this is just common sense. If you bring in a large portion of people, there is going to be a large portion of criminality coming as well. Like that's just the way it is. I don't know what's racist about saying that, but that's just the way it is. And if defending your own people, defending your own nation, your own heritage is racist, then so be it. What can you do? You know, all these buzzwords being buzzed off. I mean, that's just what people say at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, just moving on. Final questions. Seeing as you're running for the general elections, whenever that will be, whether that's October this year or early next year, would you be able to talk to me a little bit about what you're going to campaign on, and also what your hopes are for the future of the party?
Well, what we're campaigning on, so of course, I mean, it's no secret. Our biggest two campaign points would be housing and immigration, right? And see, we believe that the two are interlinked. So if you solving the immigration crisis will inherently solve the housing crisis, because although a lot of leftists might talk about, oh yeah, well, the cuckoo funds and the vulture funds, they need to be banned from buying this, that and the other. And yeah, I agree. They shouldn't be allowed to buy this, that and the other, all these swats of land and then selling it at a premium. Absolutely. However, the housing crisis is a supply and demand crisis. Like the supply is far harder to increase. We are not going to pave over our countryside, our beautiful countryside, to make ugly apartment blocks. Absolutely not. What we need to do is we need to curb the demand for it, and that's largely due to immigration. Like Irish birth rates have been sub 2.1 replacement level for a number of years now. So it's not an increase in Irish people coming into Ireland. It's an increase in foreigners coming into Ireland, and you can see that with the census. Like that's no secret, and essentially curbing that would also over time solve the housing crisis. It would stabilise everything, and then with enacting policies of remigration would see housing prices decrease over time as well, and that would make obtaining mortgages, obtaining a gaff, just much easier for Irish people and for young Irish people that want a life in Ireland. Because a lot of people that I've met that are thinking, or that want to go to on the doorsteps, actually, funnily enough, that want to go to Australia and all these places, one of the big issues, the reason why they want to go, is because they can't afford a house, they can't live life. And that's why they're seeking to go abroad, because it's easier to buy a gaff, to live their life with their missus or with their babbies or whatever, And that's our big one would be housing and immigration, because the two are interlinked. It's supply and demand economics. It's very basic, very simple. In regards to future party plans, I mean, we're doing well so far. It's just keeping organised, keep the eyes on the prize. We will be fielding more candidates within the next coming weeks, and more candidates will be announced. The reality is, I mean, like it's just a matter of getting down on the doors, chatting to people, letting them know that we exist, that we're a real opposition to the immigration pushers in the Dáil, in the Council, in the European Parliament, and that's our strategy. Our strategy is literally just knocking on doors, chatting to people, and having a discussion about national issues that a number of politicians are scared or afraid to talk about. We're more than happy to talk about them. We'll hit them head on.
Perfect. I think just two final small questions. One is just to confirm your age.
Yeah, I'm 22.
Okay, great. And then, final question. I don't think I asked this. Apologies if I did already. Just to go back to kind of my topic of young people. So, at protests or kind of gatherings often, there are often young people, whether that's kind of young teenagers or even children brought along. Do you think, obviously with your work with the youth division, do you think this is a good place for young people to be? Is their presence, a good thing, or is it even the right place for young people to be at?
Well, for a protest, I'm not sure if any protest is ideal for babbies, we'll say. I don't but it's up to the mother. I mean, whatever the mother or father think is safest or is best, that's up to them. For young people in general, teenagers or whatever, I think that they can make up their own minds in regards to that. I don't think there needs to be anyone telling them what to do. If they want to show up and support a protest, they're more than welcome to. The protests haven't been violent. I mean, yeah, like I've been at a load of the protests in Dublin, and it's just really marching around with flags, and showing Dublin City where a huge number of people stand on a lot of these main core issues, and that's what a lot of these protests are about. So I think that it's just up to young people. Young people, it's up to them to make up their mind whether they want to support it or not. And when it comes to infants, that's up to the parents. That's up to the parents. They know best.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're a father, right? Just the one child, is it?
Yeah, just the one.
Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, I think that's everything. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add or any other things.
No, you said earlier on that it was for a thesis. Did you, or did I miss?
So I'm I'm studying with the journalism school in France. So
Yeah.
basically, this is my first piece. My deadline is next week, and that's for my journalism school, which is just preliminary seen by them. And then the idea is I pitch to my editors at Euronews.
Nice one. And would you send me the article link when it's up?
Of course, yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Just thinking, could I just ask one more question? Like, what are you doing apart from when you're obviously working with the National Party? Like, what do you work as, or?
I don't really want to go into that, to be quite honest with you. But I work full time, I work full time. I'm a full time dad, and I do NP work on top of it. I'm busy enough as is.
Okay. Yeah. No, it just helps me give context to, yeah, basically, you're busy doing multiple things at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. Aren't we all, though? Aren't we all?
Yeah. All right, perfect. If I have any other questions, I might, send you a quick message on, if that's all right.
All right, grand.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time, and yeah, I'll let you know if that comes out.
All right, tug bug ish, slán ish. All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.